rock and roll.
Well, bless my soul, what's wrong with me? I'm itching like a man on a fuzzy tree. My friends say I'm acting wild as a bug. I'm in love. I'm all shook up. Yeah.
I'm all shook up. Oh. Excuse me, I didn't realize General Synod had already gathered. Great song, huh? They don't make songs like that anymore. Those were the days, 1957. Of course, I was born that year, too young to remember a thing, but I imagine some of you do. Back then, teenagers were rocking to that #1 song, much to the consternation of their parents. No good will come of today's teenagers, their parents lamented. But they were wrong. Those teenagers turned out just fine. In fact, I'm looking out at a whole sea of yesterday's teenagers. And today's teenagers. All of you, give yourselves a hand, General Synod 2015. But we are a church of many generations. Back then, I expect many of you were just a twinkle in your parents' eye or your grandparents' eyes. But let's be honest, there are some of you who do remember those days. A lot happened that year.
1957. The Soviet Union launches the world's first artificial satellite. The musical West Side Story debuts. Dr. Seuss publishes The Cat in the Hat. Leave It to Beaver premieres on television. Around the World in 80 Days wins the Academy Award for Best Picture. The Civil Rights Commission is established. And the United Church of Christ is formed with the uniting of the Evangelical and Reformed Church and the Congregational Christian churches.
The United Church of Christ came into being at the Uniting General Synod right here in Cleveland, Ohio. It was a grand and solemn occasion. Delegates came from throughout the country and took to the streets in a triumphant parade right here in Cleveland. They marched 2 by 2 right down the downtown streets of Cleveland, Ohio. Flags
Cleveland,
unfurled.
USA, June 25th, 1957. After 15 years of work, prayer, and study, there comes into being a new church, the uniting of two of our oldest churches, the Evangelical and Reformed and the Congregational Christian churches, into the youngest church, the United Church of Christ.
Once inside Cleveland's public auditorium, right next door to this room, they set about to adopt the articles that would create the country's newest denomination, but with some of the oldest congregations in the nation.
President James E. Wagner polled the delegates on the adoption of the formal articles of the basis of union with interpretation.
Of the United Church of Christ will be in order. All those in favor of adopting this joint resolution give their assent by standing. You may be seated.
Whereas the Evangelical and Reformed Church, by procedures regularly prescribed in its constitution and bylaws, has approved the basis of union and interpretations, and authorized its duly elected delegates to join in the call and holding of the Uniting General Synod, that the union of the Evangelical and Reformed Church and the General Council of the Congregational Christian Churches is now effected under the name of the United Church of Christ.
Not a single vote cast against. It was a unanimous decision. An amazing time of solidarity and unity. Come to think of it, I don't think we've ever been unanimous about anything ever since. Truth is, we're pretty stubborn when it comes to maintaining our autonomy. But God keeps speaking to us, urging us forward into a future unknown. A lot has changed since those days. The world has been all shook up in many ways. But one constant abides: God, and not a rigid, static, stuck-in-the-past God. Our God keeps speaking to us in every moment, calling us in unexpected ways to unexpected places to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with God and with each other. I have a few particular places in mind this afternoon. And if you're from one of these places, maybe you'll identify yourself. Is anyone here from Charleston or anywhere in South Carolina? Is anyone here from Ferguson or anywhere in the St. Louis area? Is anyone here from Baltimore, Maryland, or that area? Is anyone here from Staten Island or anywhere in New York City? Would you all give these people a little special love right now? And not only that, is there anyone here from Oakland or South Central Los Angeles, California? Is there anyone here from Washington, D.C.? Is there anyone here from Cincinnati or Cleveland, Ohio? Is there anyone here from any city or rural area or state in this nation or any country in the world where justice needs to roll down like waters and righteousness like an everlasting stream, where black lives need to matter, where white people and people of privilege need to show up and speak out and take action against racism and other kinds of injustice? Well, I'm proud to be part of this family of faith, committed to listening to what the Holy One is saying and calling us to shake up the world. After all, we're all part of one big global family. And we've got so much work to be proud of. Think of all the great work of our local churches, associations, conferences, our national and global ministries, our historically underrepresented groups, our wonderful educational institutions, our ecumenical partnerships.
Oh, bravo!
Whoever you are, wherever you are on life's journey, you're welcome here. You're welcome in the United Church of Christ. God calls us to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ, to be the church alive, to share the good news of God's love for all people in unexpected ways and in unexpected places. So are you ready to shake things up? We've got just one more thing we need to get this party started. Madam Stage Manager, this is Jean. She's going to be working in the shadows all week. Give her a hand. Mr. Moderator, I've got something you'll need to get this General Synod started.
Well, bless my soul, what's wrong with me? I'm itching like a man on a fuzzy tree. My friends say I'm acting wild as a bug. I'm in love. I'm all shook up. Ooh, ooh, yeah, yeah.
It is my privilege to call to order the 30th General Synod of the United Church of Christ in the very city in which our church was formed 50 years ago. The prophetic voice of our young denomination was immediately heard as the United Church of Christ began weighing in on the issues of the day, not the least of which was the fight for civil rights for all Americans. Within just 8 years of its founding, at the 1965 General Synod in Chicago, Illinois, our church was honored with the presence of Dr. Martin Luther King.
1965. The civil rights movement is bolstered with the passing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. But the struggle is far from over. America is on the brink of war, internally and externally. Malcolm X is assassinated. NASA strives to reach the moon, and the March on Selma ends in tragedy.
It's time for us to say to these men that if you don't do something about it, we will have no alternative but to engage in more drastic forms of civil disobedience in order to bring the attention of the nation to this whole issue in Selma, Alabama.
It is in this same year that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. speaks before the General Synod of the United Church of Christ on July 6, 1965.
It stands against the broad universalism that stands at the center of the gospel. Racial segregation is diametrically opposed to the principles of our Judeo-Christian ethics, and all of the dialectics of the logicians cannot make them lie down together. It seems to me that this is the first responsibility, and this is the first challenge.
His words are deliberate, his demeanor compassionate, yet determined.
The church has the responsibility of going to the ideational roots of racial prejudice and telling people the truth on the basic issues that we face in our society today, and on the basic questions surrounding the whole race problem. And at this point, the church must go all out to keep dialogue alive.
Undaunted, looking ever forward, Dr. King reminds the church of its prophetic witness to do justice.
And if this problem is to be solved in our country today, there must be a sort of divine discontent. It isn't going to work itself out. But enough people must rise up and be a part of that creative minority. And say, I'm going to take a stand. I love this nation.
July 6th, 1965. It is a moment in time that will stand the test of time, when one man with one mission stood before a church united in solidarity for the good of all people.
Dear friends, welcome to the 30th General Synod of the United Church of Christ. My name is Brian Holman, and I am honored to serve as your Synod moderator, and I am humbled to stand before this esteemed body, conscious of all of those who have stood here before me and presided over and addressed the General Synod, past moderators and officers of the church, members of the Collegium, marvelous leaders, both lay and ordained, and so many inspiring voices such as Reverend Dr. King 50 years ago, Cesar Chavez at General Synod 9 in 1973, and at our anniversary synod in 2007, then Senator and now President Barack Obama. We have a very full 5 days ahead of us, but I am looking forward to working with all of you to not only do the business of the church, but also to celebrate who we are as the United Church of Christ and the marvelous gifts and witness we have to offer to the world. During a press conference 10 years ago this week, General Minister and President John Thomas marked the historic vote the General Synod had just taken on the issue of marriage equality with these words: "On this July 4th, the General Synod of the United Church of Christ has acted courageously to declare freedom, affirming marriage equality, affirming the civil rights of same-gender couples to have their relationships recognized as marriages by the state, and encouraging our local churches to celebrate and bless those marriages." Now, that quote was from one of our own. Let me give you a quote from some other individuals. "No union is more profound than marriage, for it embodies the highest ideals of love, fidelity, devotion, sacrifice, and family. In forming a marital union, two people become something greater than once they were. As some of the petitioners in these cases demonstrate, marriage embodies a love that may endure even past death. It would misunderstand these men and women to say they disrespect the idea of marriage. Their plea is that they do respect it so deeply that they seek to find its fulfillment for themselves. Their hope is not to be condemned to live in loneliness, excluded from one of civilization's oldest institutions. They ask for equal dignity in the eyes of the law. The Constitution grants them that right."